Hey everybody, my name's Geoff. Thank you so much again for joining us tonight for our worship night. I'm really glad you could make it and spend some time with us. What I want to do to start off my time here with you tonight is to ask you to think about somebody, let's say a movie character or a TV character, that seemed like they just never failed. They always got through everything and they always achieved that goal at the end. Take a second. Somebody coming to mind? For me, I went to the old 1998 movie Armageddon, one of my favorites. And two of the main characters in Armageddon are Harry Stamper and AJ, played by Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck. Now, I'm going to spoil the movie, so if you haven't seen it, I think the statute of limitations on a movie from the 90s is up, but I'm going to spoil it. So what they're supposed to do is they have to go up into space, and they land on this meteor that's going to come down and destroy everything on Earth, kind of a story we've heard before. What they have to do, though, is they have to blow it up from the inside out, because they're drillers. And there's this very dramatic scene towards the end where they know somebody's going to have to stay and manually detonate the bomb they put in it so it would go. And it turns out it's going to be Harry through this big ordeal that he and AJ went through. So as the plane is flying off, they're headed back. All right, they're headed back to Earth. Harry's still there, and he hasn't detonated yet. And all the crew's like, just push the button, you got to do it. And there's this very quiet moment from AJ where he says, Harry will do it. Harry doesn't know how to fail. He doesn't know how to fail. He's that guy. Now, I know if we think about it in real life, everybody fails or lets us down at some point. But what if we had something that really doesn't fail, that never lets us down, that's always there for us? Well, that's what we're going to talk about tonight, and that is God's love. God's love doesn't fail. We sung some songs about that tonight, and that's kind of the theme, and we're going to do that by looking through 1 Corinthians 13. When I hear 1 Corinthians 13, I've been through the Bible a number of times. Where I go is always to the wedding passage, because that's in 1 Corinthians 13. It's love is patient, love is kind. It's all these great characteristics of what love is. And that's great. But when you study the whole chapter, Paul didn't write this as a way to say, hey, you guys need something to talk about at weddings or to read for Valentine's Day or sound all great. Here you go. No, what he wrote this as was actually, as I see it, a rebuke, a reminder, and then a road forward. So let's look at that really quick, and then I will kind of give us something to encourage you with. So what's going on in the Corinthian church is the people there have their gifts, have their spiritual gifts. We have tongues and prophecy and all these things going on. But the problem is they're not using them well. They're getting a little out of control. They're competing with each other about whose gifts are better or who can do more with it or does it give it higher status. And that's kind of where Paul comes in with this chapter. Now, he writes it in a letter, which I think he does a really nice job writing it. But I could see this if we took this as maybe a meeting in a modern business setting. So think about Paul as the boss, and he calls everybody into the office. And he sits them down around this conference table, and he just does one of these. He just kind of stares at them, as if to say, guys, we're not getting it. All right, so let's look at what he's talking about here. So he starts off by saying, if I have the gifts of tongues, or if I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I have nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor, give over my body to hardship, that I can boast, but I don't have love, I gain nothing. There's a rebuke. Guys, if you're not using your gifts well, with love, you have nothing. Then the reminder, what is love? Here's the wedding passage. Love is patient, love is kind, doesn't envy, doesn't boast, and all those great characteristics of love. He's reminding them what love is. And then finally, this road forward. Verse 8, love never fails. Where their prophecies still cease, where their tongues they'll be stilled, where there's knowledge it'll pass away. But love doesn't fail. That's what he's telling them. That's that road forward. That guy's the love of God. And this true love, not a romantic love, but that true love that was displayed by God sending Christ to die for us. That we then love God with, that we love others with. That love will never fail. That's what Paul's reminding them with. And that's what he's giving them that road forward with. That's what you're supposed to use those gifts for, guys. That's our path forward. Doing it all in love. Remember that. So what I want to do to encourage you with that tonight is to kind of just share how I'm reminded of God's love and how it really hits me in my life. I thought that was maybe a little better way to do it than just to try to describe more about God's love. I think we could use a lot of words, but I think my experience is one I want to share with you and hopefully encourage you with. So I'm going to get very real with you for a minute. I'm a person that every day struggles with an anxiety disorder. I wrestle with it every day. I get so much adrenaline in my head that I have to just flesh it down and calm it um, and deal with it. And I want to say to any of you listening, if that's something you deal with, you experience, you have, you're not alone. I'm right there with you. You can make it. You ever want to talk about that? Let me know. But I bring that up, and it's not something I talk about a lot, but I bring that up because one of the biggest things that sets me off, one of my triggers, as we would say, is unexpected big changes. Curveballs. Any of you baseball fans, we're talking about a 12-6 curveball, which means the ball starts here, and by the time it gets to the batter, it's down here. It's way down. So this big change that I can't even see coming, couldn't have planned for. And those are incredibly difficult for me. It sets me off. So all I'm longing for is something consistent, something I can rely on, something I know is going to be there. When as I read through the Bible, God's love is that constant. Now, does it mean that every day is going to be perfect? No. Does it mean that things aren't going to keep happening that hurt others, that hurt me, that cause trials, that cause disagreement, that cause conflict? No. But it means that God's right there with us in that. He's with you, he's with me in the midst of all that. He's not going to abandon us. His love doesn't fail us. So I've held on to that as as I wrestle with this, and know that that's always there for me. And like I said, it always helps. Does it make it completely go away? No. But man, it's something that I can latch onto as a person that desperately needs that some type of consistency, that needs something that's not going to change, that I can rely on. So what I want to encourage you with tonight is, if you're out there and you're feeling like, man, I keep messing up, or things just keep not going right, and I'm constantly letting myself down, or God down, or other people down, remember God's love, because love is patient. It feels like, man, I need something to pick me up, or everything feels mean, or everybody's just angry at everybody. God's love is kind. And if you're like me, where you're just like, I just need something to keep my head from spinning so much, I know that's going to be, there's something I can rely on. God's love, it perseveres and it never fails. That's my favorite part of 1 Corinthians 13. That God's love perseveres and never fails. And we're going to close with a song tonight. It's me singing it. And it's called One Thing Remains. And it's just about that out of everything, no matter what happens, one thing remains. And it's God's love, and that it never gives up, never fails, it never runs out on us. So I would encourage you to, if you know the words, you can sing along. Otherwise, just sit and close your eyes and sit in this song. And just let it kind of take over you. And remind you of how powerful God's love is. Thank you for letting me be real with you. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Let me pray, and we'll finish with this song. God, I thank you first that everybody could be here tonight with us, God, that as we gather virtually, that we could still come together as a body of believers, God, and just dive in to how deep your love is, God. And we thank you so much. That is a love that will never fail, it'll never run out, and it will always be there for us because of the sacrifice that you sent your son to pay on the cross, God. We thank you for that. I pray that as we go tonight, as we wrap up, that we'd all be reminded of what your love is, God, that it is patient, that it is kind, and that it never runs out. It perseveres, and it will not fail. And God, I pray that we would remember you love us in that way, that we would love you in that way, that we would love others with that same love, God. I pray this in your name. Amen.